Welcome back to Smoke Signals. I'm Matt Montgomery along with head football coach Chris Tabor. The Fighting Indians at home again Friday night against the Nacogdoches Golden Dragons, who come into Tomato Bowl, coach, with a 2-1 district record. And this is a NAC team that just a couple of years ago was 0-10, made the playoffs last year. This year, Bobby Reyes' team is really playing some good football.
They are. They've had two good classes come through. This senior class here is very talented. They've been together for a long time. So Coach Reyes does a great job. He's known for doing that and going into programs that have been struggling and getting them going, and walked into a good opportunity, and he's taking full advantage of it.
Yeah, NAC beat Lufkin in the first week. That's the second year they've beaten Lufkin, which is and it was a district ball game. So and they got beat by Ennis, but then they came back last week and got a big win. So Nacogdoches is a team that has a lot of talent, Coach. I mean, you mentioned the good class they had last year, this year. What a talented junior class they have with several players. One of them's out with an injury right now, but my goodness, they have a lot of team speed.
Yeah, and if you watch Nacogdoches, they have the kids in the position that look like they should be playing the position. They got big D linemen, they got big O linemen. They're not real flashy. The skilled kids are really good. The receiving core and quarterback are exceptional. I mean, they've done a really good job the last 2 years with those kids. And if you watch them, they don't do a whole bunch, and they're not flashy, and they don't surprise you with stuff. They do what they do, and they do it well.
Well, Coach Nacogdoches has a pretty prolific offense. They've scored a lot of points, had a shootout with White House. Hunter McClellan's back at quarterback, and Coronado Tolbert had a huge game running the football. Against Ennis, he had a big ball game, and then they got the win last week. Yeah,
and Hunter McClellan's an outstanding athlete. I mean, he's a pitcher on the baseball team. He's in well control of the offense, and it has been for the last 2 years. They lost him last year to an injury about midway through the season, which kind of hurt him a little bit, but they have another kid that could step in. So, what they do well. The kids have bought into what they're trying to do, and the Tolbert kid runs hard and he's downhill, so it's going to be a challenge.
One of the strengths of the Fighting Indian team this year has been running the football, of course, and of course you mentioned they have a big, strong defensive line. Is that kind of like the matchup of the game that's going to determine it this week?
I think so. I think, looking at film this last week and looking at what people have heard them on is people have been able to run the ball, pretty successfully on them. Back in the back end, they got talent all over the place with 3 D1 defensive backs, that can kind of shut down your passing game. But when you look at what people have had success on, it's what we've had success doing, which was running the football. And I think that's going to be the key to the game, is us keeping their offense off the field, because they are a quick strike offense and they can score pretty quick. And us being able to grind it out and keep the ball away from them as much as possible.
And, of course, I know they're thinking the same thing, to try to keep your offense off the field. And, with the running defense that they have, I mean, it opens up possibilities. White House had a lot of success throwing the ball against Nacogdoches.
Yeah, and that's what we got to do. I think our quick game is still good. It's going to be the shots down the field that we're going to have to really pick and choose when we want to take those opportunities, and all that's going to be set up by us being able to run the football. We saw it last week against Lindale. Early in the game, we were able to run the ball. We had some play-action passes that were wide open. We didn't complete them, but we were able to stretch the defense the way we wanted to and get those safeties out of the box, and we're going to have to be able to do the same thing this week.
We talked early on in the season about turnovers and how last year you didn't win the turnover ratio. Then the first 3 games when we went 3-0, you won the turnover battle, and then it kind of started turning as you got into district play, and I know that's an issue, is you got to minimize those turnovers. Those are killers.
Yeah, when you're in a district like this and the teams we're playing, I mean, you're playing, for the 7 teams you're playing in district are ranked in the top 15, and they're good football teams, and they're going to create those turnovers. What we have to do is we have to be more conscious of protecting the ball, and in the second part of that, we have to be able to produce some turnovers, which we did the other night.
Yeah.
We got us fumble, got us another interception with Wagner. So those are the things we got to do to stop momentum and change field position, and we've got to put ourselves in a situation to capitalize, which we've struggled the last 2 weeks.
When you get in district play, Coach, you can go to certain plays and you say, oh, that was a turning point, but my goodness, the Corsicana game and the Lindale game both had plays that just turned it. I look back at last week in the Lindale game, and you had it was a 28-point swing is the way I count it, because you had 2 touchdowns called back via penalty. Don't know if they were penalties or not, but the flags were thrown, and then they ended up scoring on those 2 right there. Those are some of the things I know that as a coaching staff you get frustrated with, because you're there, you get in the red zone, you score, then you get the penalty.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of been the frustration that we've had the last couple of weeks, is just the consistency of the fouls being called. I mean, there's holding on every play. I mean, you can throw a flag on every play. If it's not someone getting taken to the ground, or or just a blatant penalty, I think you let the kids play. And we saw it the last 2 weeks, and you're exactly right. I mean, Carter scores. It's not a holding call on Vidal. I mean,
Yeah.
it wasn't even close, and that was frustrating. Corsicana, we had the same situation where we could have got back to a one score. And then, we drive back down the field after holding Lindale and have a chance to put it within 3 points or take the lead, and they call another penalty on us. And, when you get backed up off of silly penalties, you kind of shoot yourself in the foot when you go from first and goal from the 1, and then you end up 4th and 30 from the.
Well, just the emotional letdown of, I think it was 3rd and goal at the 19, and you score. And the jubilation, everybody's celebrating, and then you see that yellow hanky out there, and it's like, oh my goodness.
There's
And
been a
that's
couple.
just lets the balloon out.
Yeah,
Let that balloon.
and I'm not ever going to blame officials, but
Yeah.
the last couple of weeks it seems like we've been getting some unfavorable calls at big times of the game that were swing points. That really could have put us in the lead or got us back in it emotionally or mentally, and it's frustrating.
Yeah.
But when you're struggling, those things kind of rear their head, and those are the things you got to be able to overcome as well.
You got 4 games left, and against probably the 4 favorites in the district, and you're still in it. I mean, you run the table right here, and your team's in the playoffs. I know you still believe in your team, you still believe in the kids, but they just got to get it done on the field, and they got to cut out the mistakes and the penalties.
Yeah, and I do. I mean, we've seen our kids play well this year. I know what we're capable of, and if we can find that kind of mystique about us and that fight in us, then we can compete in these games, and that's what we're looking for. I mean, we're in playoff mode right now. Every week right now is playoff mode for us. It's win or go home, and you got to win. And I think our kids are starting to understand that. And we talked about it this weekend. We looked at it, and I personally searched and tried to find what's going on. And I think I was asking the wrong question. I think I was asking what can I do instead of how can we get there. And it's a team effort. I think we just got to sit down and figure out how can we get back to playing the way we played the first 3-4 weeks, even against Ennis. How can we get back to that level of competition and give ourselves an opportunity to win these games?
We got Nacogdoches at Tomato Bowl again this Friday night. Coach, talk about the keys to the game to get the win.
I think the keys to the game is us, being able to control the ball and not turn it over, and then produce some points in the red zone. That's the thing that's hurt us the last 2 weeks is we've had 6 possessions inside the 20 that we have not put points on the board. So, if we can produce in the red zone, and I think if we can play defense and hold their run game to minimal. I mean, they're going to get their yards, but if we can hold them under 200 yards rushing, I think we got a chance to win the game.
Jacksonville versus Nacogdoches Friday night at Tomato Bowl. Will be in the air at 7 o'clock. Kickoff at 7:30. We'll be back here next week on Smoke Signals. I'm Matt Montgomery along with Chris Tabor. We'll see you next time.